But it was a weird time to date during COVID, during like 2020, 2021. And I was gaslit by COVID because I was convinced I needed to date an Italian man. Now, I'm half Italian, half Australian, which basically just means I like pineapple on pizza. That's it. That's all you got to know about me. And I did say that when I did the show in Italy and I got death stares, so I made it out alive. But I was convinced because like I wanted someone who knew like the upbringing, who knew the family, everything like this. So I was gaslit. I was like, okay, I'm going to date an Italian guy. But the first time I dated an Italian guy didn't go down very well. It was about 10 years ago. And I was at university and I was studying in the north of Italy. And this guy was my host brother. Not the weirdest part of the story, right? So I was studying in the north of Italy. He lived in this wine valley. He drove an Alfa Romeo convertible. And I was like, oh my God, I am totally eat, pray, loving the shit out of life right now, right? And we had this passionate love affair. I called him my Italian lover, right? Italian lover, Italian lover. And I have to say it like that because if I say it with my Australian accent, like Italian lover, just doesn't sound as good, you know? But we had this passionate love affair, right, lasted for 6 weeks, and then I had to leave to go back and finish my studies in Australia, and I came back a year later to rekindle our love affair, right? So I came back a year later, right, and we were like, on the first day that I arrived, we had this massive family do, right, and I arrived and he was introducing to his whole family. He's like, Elena, this is my mama, my papa, my nonno, bisnonno, first, second, third, fourth, 50th cousin, right? I'm like, ciao, piacere, ciao, ciao, ciao. And the good thing about Italy is that if you fuck up their names, everyone's called the same 4 names, right? It's like Maria, Marco, perfetto, okay. So at the end of the night, I was so jet lagged and I just wanted to go home to sleep, right? And I couldn't find Davide, which was his name, and I couldn't find him, so I found his friend, and I found his friend in the corner. I was like, hey, like where's Davide? Because I want to go home. And he looked me dead in the eyes and just goes, Elena. And you know shit is bad when an Italian says your name 3 times in a row, right? He's like, sì, Elena, he's upstairs committing, what do we call here in Italy? Incesticide. And I'm glad you're shocked, right? Because I did tell that story in Munich and they were like, yeah. Fucked my cousin last night, yeah. Sehr gut. Sehr lecker, yeah. It's really true. And I was like, incesticide. And I was like, but wouldn't that be like the anti-incest thing? You know, like, your cousin's fucking again. Try incesticide. Stop it. Right? But clearly the irony is lost on Italians, right? So I was like, incesticide, and then I thought back to my own Italian upbringing with my nonna. She used to say to me, like, keep it in the family, huh? I was like... is that what that meant, right? So I called my cousin the next day because I was so confused. I was like, is this a thing? Did I miss out on this during like Italian school? And she's like, sì, Elena, we have a saying here in Italy which is non c'è cosa più divina che scorparsi la cucina. Which basically just means there is nothing more divine than fucking your cousin. And I don't know about you, Berlin, but I can think of things that are way more divine than fucking like doing my taxes. Like, that's more divine, right? So I was put off by dating Italian guys for 10 years, right? But I thought, you know what? Like, if an Italian guy comes into my life in the next 6 months or whatever, or in the future, I'll give him a go, right? So it was the end of 2020. I was doing a show here in Berlin, and this guy slid into my DMs, which is how all good millennial dating stories start. And he was like, ciao, Elena, my name is Marco. I just saw you perform, and I'm Italian, you're Italian. I think we would be perfect together. You know, I want to take you out. We go on my motorbike. I take you out. We have pizza. We have tiramisu. It'll be perfetto. I was like, okay. Now, this guy had a private profile, and he had a photo, but he was on like a motorbike that was like super far away. And you know, ladies, you got to protect yourself, right? So I was like, oh, ciao Marco, thank you so much. That's really kind of you to invite. I'd love to come out on your motorbike, you know, that sounds great. But I'm just letting you know that I'm not looking for anything right now, okay? Like I'm just out of a relationship. I'm not looking for anything. So this is not a date, okay? Not a date. Not a date. But he thought it was a date, so it doesn't matter what I thought, right? So we go out on his motorbike, right? We go out, we have so much pizza and so much tiramisu to the point where I had to like unbutton and unzip, you know? Partly also because I was still wearing the jeans that were a size too small. I was like, you fucking paid for them, Alan, you gotta fucking wear them, yeah. Lucky it was like winter, so I had to like, you know, have the big coat on, right? And at the end, at the end of the pizza and the tiramisu, he was like, Elena, would you like a Baci chocolate? You know, those little Baci chocolates with the little like things in it. And I was like, oh no, like I'm really full, I'm good. And he's like, no, Elena, take a Baci chocolate. I was like, no, I'm good. And he's like, no, Elena, take a Baci chocolate. And I was like, is it laced with something, right? So I took one and I ate it. And I was like, oh, do you want me to have another one? He's like, no, one is okay. I survived, it's fine. So I went home and I wasn't really feeling it with this guy. But, you know, it was Berlin. It was like in November 2020. It was depressing. Like, you know, I live alone, just out of a relationship. And, you know, I got lonely. And you know when you're like lonely and there's that little like lonely voice in the back of your head that tells you to do stupid shit? That voice came to my head and it was like, psst, Eleanor, I know you don't like this guy, but why don't you just invite him over on the weekend, you know? Like, like maybe on Saturday night, just invite him over. Like, what else are you going to do with your time? You're going to sit on TikTok for 4 hours? Like, what else are you going to do? Just invite him over and then maybe you'll get a story out of it and then you can tell it on stage in 2 years' time and capitalise on it. Like, maybe you could do that. So I invited him over. And he came over on that Saturday and I invited him to my place because I knew where the knives were and... Because, you know, we couldn't do anything else. We couldn't go out to a restaurant. We couldn't go out for a walk because we'd freeze to death. So I was like, okay, come over, right? So he comes over to my place and I open the door and I'm like, whoo! And he's standing there like a typical Italian man. He had a little comb over, little scarf, little double-breasted jacket, the tight skinny leg jeans, and then the shoes with the no socks. You know the shoes with the no socks, ladies? And you just see it and your vagina's like, I'm good. I'm good. Because, like, really, like, I don't give a shit. I don't care aesthetically if guys want to relive their Victorian-era fantasy, right? Like, get their ankles out, drive all us women crazy, okay? I don't give a shit. What I care about is what's going to happen when those shoes come off, right? Because either two things are going to happen, right? And I don't know which is worse, right? The first one, you know, he takes them off and he's not wearing socks, and the smell, you know, the smell that'll come because no one ordered 24-year-old matured Parmigiano Reggiano for the table, you know? But the second one, which I think is even worse, is like when he takes them off and he's wearing sockets. A grown man wearing sockets. There is nothing unsexier than a grown man wearing sockets. Actually, no, there is. It's when the grown men are wearing those 5-finger toe shoes to go running, right? Those things are worse, man. So I was like, you know what, if I come in. So he comes in and he's also holding this massive, massive bouquet of roses, right? I know, at least €80 worth of roses. And I was there and I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Because, like, I had this, like, visceral reaction because I've never dated a romantic guy before. So I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, this is flowers, right? Because, like, my expectations of men are so fucking low, right? Like, below sea level expectations, you know? Like, my kind of guy is a guy that will, like, come on your stomach and not wipe it up, right? So then you have to do that weird limbo dance to the bathroom, like dun 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 dun. How low can you go? Don't want to get it anywhere. So when I feel there's some limbo dancers here in the audience. And like, I didn't know what to do, so he hands me these roses. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. He's like, see, Elena, these are for you. And he's like, they are from the only florist in Berlin that lets me in. What? He's like, see, Elena, I've been banned from every florist in Berlin because I am so picky about my floral arrangements. Huh. I'm sorry, how the fuck do you get banned from a florist, right? Have you been into a florist? Like, they are the most passive, beautiful people on this planet, you know? Like, you could literally murder someone in a florist and they'll be like, oh, it's okay, I'll clean it up, don't worry, yeah. I've got the roses right here. Do you want to have the funeral right now? Yeah. So I was like, oh, thank you, right? So I take the roses and I put them down. And then he's like, and also, Elena, I have a gift for you because I know how much you love glitter. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, see, Elena, I made this for you. Made. So he hands me this little canvas bag, right, with a giant glitter like E on the front. And I was like, oh, it's so cool, it's so good. So observant. So I take the bag and I open it and I pull out this little photo frame, right? And this photo frame is covered in silver glitter. And I was like, made. Wait a minute. This guy's gone to Bauhaus. He's bought paint, glue, glitter. Sorry, a straight man has bought glitter. Can we just lock that one away, right? And I was like, and he's sat there and he's had a crafternoon in my honour, right? Just sitting there like he's Michelangelo painting the Sistine Chapel, like, Elena's going to love this, right? And I was like, oh, thank you. And so I turn over the photo frame and what's inside? The Baci chocolate wrapper that I ate a week earlier. Yeah, this guy's in my house, okay? And I was like, that's so kind, right? So I take it. Also, if you want to see it, you can check out my Instagram. It's on my main page. You can see there's a photo of it because it does exist. He tried to comment on it, but I blocked him. Just in case someone wants to commission him for some work. So I put the photo frame aside and I was like, oh, thank you so much. It's so kind of you, right? So we sat down and I made risotto and we were eating risotto and drinking wine, and wine always leads to good choices. And we were sitting on the couch drinking some wine and that little lonely voice came back into my head and it was like, psst, Eleanor, I know you don't like this guy, but why don't you just give him a bit of a kiss, yeah? Like, why don't you just give him a kiss? Because, like, maybe he'll be an amazing kisser and it'll just redeem all that creepy shit that he's just done, yeah? So I kissed him. I don't know if anyone here has ever kissed someone where it feels like the mother bird is regurgitating food back into the baby bird's mouth, right? You know when Sarah's like, and you're there and you're like, and he's like the back muscles got involved, you know? Like, I could taste the risotto. Like, that's where we're at. I know. So I was like, so I asked him to leave politely. I was like, you know what, Marco, please leave. Like, I'm not feeling it, right? And it was fine. He left. And the next day, I got a text message from him. And he's like, ciao, Elena. Thank you so much for the date. I was like, not a date. And he's like, but can you tell me, what was the Justin Timberlake song that was playing when we first kissed? What are you going to do with that piece of information? Am I going to wake up tomorrow, there's a full Justin Timberlake, like, glitter replica at the front of my house? And he's there with a boombox, like, I'm bringing sexy back. So I politely told him, I was like, look, Marco, I'm not interested, right? But he kept persisting. He's like, no, Elena, like, you know, and I was like, no, like, I'm not, like, you know, and I didn't, like, for women, sometimes we have to use the excuse of, like, oh, I'm seeing someone for someone to, like, you know, finally back off, right? As if we're someone's property. And I was like, no, like, I'm not feeling it right. But he kept being so persistent, and I started to realise why he'd been banned from every florist in Berlin, right? And I'm like, they have a group chat and I want in, all right? I I went into that group chat, you know. So I was trying to think of a way that I could politely let him down without, you know, without kind of being so mean. And I was trying to think, I was like, oh, okay, I could text him. That's, you know, that's a bit, like, I don't want to do that because it's, you know, kind of a bit informal. And then I was like, oh, I could call him, but I was like, oh, it's going to open up a whole line of dialogue that I'm not ready for, right? And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll just send him a voice message, you know, because that's like the kind of middle ground where you don't feel like a cunt. And I was like, okay, let's do that. So I was trying to think of like what I could say to him, and I was like, okay, I was like, Marco. I'm actually seeing someone right now, and me and my cousin are really happy, and I never heard from him again. So isn't that great? I know, such a good story.